The silver pendant felt cold against my throat as I watched Madison, my stepsister, adjust the corsage on Derek Chen's lapel. Her manicured fingers lingered too long on his chest, and she threw her head back with that practiced laugh that had taken her exactly 3 weeks to perfect after I died. Well, after I died the first time. "You look so beautiful tonight, Maddie," Derek said, his voice tight with something I now recognized as forced enthusiasm. He tugged at his bow tie, the nervous gesture he always did when he was uncomfortable. I knew that gesture intimately. In my previous life, I'd spent prom night analyzing every micro expression on his face as he stood in this exact spot, corsage in hand, waiting for me to descend the stairs in the emerald dress my mother had helped me pick out. The dress that had mysteriously disappeared from my closet the morning of prom. The dress Madison had worn instead, after convincing Derek that I'd stood him up, that I'd run off with some college guy I'd been secretly seeing. I'd spent that night, my original prom night, sobbing in my room while my father told me I was being dramatic, that Madison deserved happiness too, that I should be a better sister. 2 years later, I'd died in a car accident on my way to my college graduation. The brakes had failed. The mechanic's report, which I'd never gotten to see, had apparently noted signs of tampering. My father had buried that report along with me. But somehow, impossibly, I'd woken up on my 16th birthday, 3 months before prom, with every memory of my next 6 years intact. Now, standing in the shadows of the upstairs hallway, I watched the scene play out differently. This time, I wasn't crying. This time, I wore jeans and an oversized sweater. This time, my phone buzzed in my pocket. "Derek, where are you? I thought you were coming down." I smiled and typed back, "Change of plans. Have fun tonight." Madison's eyes darted toward the stairs, searching. She'd expected me to appear, to make a scene, to give her the drama she craved. Instead, she got nothing. My phone buzzed again. "Derek." "What? Lily, what's going on? Did I do something wrong?" Me. "You didn't do anything wrong, but you're about to have the worst night of your life if you go to prom with her. Trust me." "Derek?" Me. "Madison told you I was seeing someone else, right? That I was going to ditch you?" The three dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again, Derek. "How did you know that?" Me. "Because that's what she does. She lies. Check your jacket pocket." The inside left one. I watched from above as Derek's hand slipped into his pocket. His face went pale as he pulled out the folded piece of paper, the note I'd planted there when I'd accidentally bumped into him in the hallway yesterday. The note, written in Madison's handwriting, which I'd practiced until I could forge perfectly, detailed her entire plan to steal my prom date, including the line, "Derek's so gullible. Once I get him away from Lily, I'll have him wrapped around my finger by midnight." I'd copied it from her actual diary, which I'd photographed weeks ago when she'd left it open on her bed. "What is this?" Derek's voice cut through the foyer, sharp and cold. Madison's face crumbled. "I don't know what you're talking about. This is your handwriting, Madison." He held up the note. "I've seen your notes in chemistry class." My stepmother, Celeste, swooped in like a vulture in Chanel. "Derek, sweetie, I'm sure this is just a misunderstanding. Did you know about this?" Derek turned to her. "Did you know Madison was planning to sabotage Lily?" Celeste's perfectly Botoxed face managed a slight crease of concern. "Now, let's not be hasty. Madison would never—" "I'm leaving." Derek ripped off the corsage and dropped it on the floor. "And for the record, Lily was right about all of you." The front door slammed. Madison burst into tears, real ones this time. Celeste rounded on my father. "Gerald, do something. This is your daughter's fault." "Lily's your daughter too," my father said quietly. I almost fell down the stairs in shock. My father had never in either lifetime defended me. But then Celeste's eyes narrowed and she played her trump card. "She's the reason your company is struggling, Gerald. If you just let me liquidate her trust fund like I suggested." "We are not touching Lily's trust fund. Then Madison's college fund is also not being touched." Celeste's expression turned venomous. You're choosing her over your own wife? Over Madison's happiness? I'm choosing not to commit fraud, my father said. And if you bring up Lily's trust fund one more time, I'm calling my attorney. This was new. This was very, very new. My phone buzzed. Derek, can I call you? Me. Yes. The call came through immediately. I retreated to my bedroom, closing the door on the escalating argument downstairs. Lily. Derek's voice was strained. What the hell just happened? You were about to be Madison's latest trophy, I said, sitting on my bed. She doesn't actually like you. She just likes taking things from me. How did you know about the note? Because she wrote about it in her diary. I found it a few weeks ago. A pause. You've been planning this. I've been protecting myself, I corrected. There's a difference. Why didn't you just show me the diary? Would you have believed me? Or would you have thought I was the jealous stepsister making things up? Another pause, longer this time. Probably the second one, he admitted. God, I'm an idiot. You're not an idiot. You're trusting. That's different. I really wanted to take you to prom, Lily. His voice softened. I've wanted to ask you out since sophomore year, but you always seem so closed off. My heart clenched. In my previous life, I'd been closed off because I'd learned early that opening up meant giving people ammunition. Madison had used every secret, every vulnerability against me. I'm working on that, I said. Can I make it up to you? Not prom. I know that's ruined now, but coffee tomorrow? I smiled. I'd like that. We talked for 3 hours that night. About everything. About his plans to study architecture at Berkeley. About my dream of becoming a forensic accountant. A dream that had crystallized in my second life after I'd realized exactly how my stepfamily had been stealing from me. About his parents' divorce. About his sister's battle with leukemia. About all the real things that lived beneath the surface of high school hierarchy. I'm glad I didn't go to prom, he said finally. This is better. Yeah, I agreed, looking at the star-shaped stickers on my ceiling, remnants from childhood that I'd never bothered to remove. This is better. But even as I smiled, I knew this was just the opening move. Because in my previous life, Madison stealing my prom date had been just the beginning. The memories hit me in waves sometimes, usually late at night when the house was quiet. I'd lie in bed and remember things I wished I could forget. Like how, after prom, Madison had started a rumor that I'd tried to seduce Derek at a party, that I'd gotten drunk and thrown myself at him. The rumor had spread through school like wildfire. Derek, pressured by Madison's tears and Celeste's manipulations, had eventually apologized to her and distanced himself from me entirely. I'd spent the last month of senior year eating lunch in the library, avoiding eye contact in hallways, watching my few friendships crumble under the weight of Madison's carefully constructed lies. Or how, during college, Madison had somehow gotten access to my scholarship application essays I'd worked on for months, and had submitted them as her own to a different set of schools. When I'd confronted my father about it, he'd accused me of being paranoid. Madison wouldn't do that, he'd said. She's not that kind of person. But she was exactly that kind of person. She'd gotten into Yale on my words, my stories, my pain. And I'd watched from my state school, drowning in student loans because my trust fund had mysteriously dried up. Celeste's doing, I'd later learned, as Madison posted Instagram photos of her Ivy League life. Or how, when I'd finally landed a good job after graduation, Madison had called my employer and claimed I'd lied on my resume. I'd lost the job before my second week. My father had refused to believe me when I'd told him what she'd done. You're jealous, he'd said. You've always been jealous of Madison. The gaslighting had been constant, suffocating. By the time I died at 22, I'd been so isolated, so thoroughly convinced that I was the problem, that I'd actually felt guilty for resenting them. But death had given me clarity. Waking up at 16, with all those memories intact, had been like emerging from a fog I hadn't known I was in. I'd spent the first week of my second life locked in my room, processing, planning, grieving for the girl I'd been who'd believed their lies. Then I'd gotten to work. The first thing I'd done was secure my trust fund. The trust my maternal grandmother had left me was supposed to be untouchable until I turned 18, but I discovered that my father had added Celeste as a co-trustee 6 months after marrying her. In my previous life, Celeste had slowly drained it through administrative fees and investment losses that were actually transfers to her personal accounts. This time, I'd called my grandmother's attorney directly, a stern woman named Patricia Chen, who'd never liked my father's second marriage. I'd told her I was concerned about the trust's management and asked for a full audit. Patricia had found the discrepancies within a week. $50,000 gone. Celeste had been skimming since she'd gotten access. "We can file charges," Patricia had told me. "This is fraud." "Not yet," I'd said. "I need to document everything first. If we move now, my father will protect her and she'll find a way to spin it." Patricia had looked at me with something like respect. "You're thinking strategically. Good. I'll keep monitoring the account. If she tries to take more, I'll freeze it." The second thing I'd done was start recording everything. Every conversation, every argument, every casual comment where Celeste or Madison revealed their true intentions. My phone had become a weapon, like the conversation I'd recorded 2 weeks before prom when I'd accidentally left my phone on the kitchen counter while hiding in the pantry. "Celeste, once Lily's trust fund is fully depleted, we can finally afford that house in the Hamptons, but..." "Madison? Mom, what if she finds out?" Celeste. "She won't. She's too busy moping about being the misunderstood middle child. Besides, Gerald won't believe her even if she does figure it out. He never does." "Madison. What about her college fund?" Celeste. "That's next. But we need to be careful. If Patricia Chen gets suspicious, the whole thing falls apart." Madison. "I still don't understand why Grandma left everything to Lily and nothing to Dad." Celeste. "Because Lily's mother was Patricia's daughter. It's all tied up in grief and guilt, but that money should have been your father's, which means it should be ours." I'd listened to that recording at least 20 times, each replay stoking the cold fury in my chest. They weren't just stealing from me. They were stealing my mother's legacy, the last gift from a woman who'd died when I was 8, before she could protect me from the vultures who'd circle her widower. The third thing I'd done was reach out to my mother's sister, Aunt Caroline, who'd tried to maintain contact after the funeral but had been slowly frozen out by my father and Celeste. In my previous life, I'd believed their story that Aunt Caroline had moved on and didn't want to be bothered with me. In this life, I'd found her email address and sent a simple message. "I miss you. Can we talk?" She'd called me within an hour, crying, "Lily, sweetheart, I've been trying to reach you for years," she'd said. "Your father blocked my number. I sent birthday cards, Christmas presents. Did you get any of them?" "No," I'd said, my throat tight. "They told me you didn't want to see me anymore." The sound she'd made was pure anguish. "Oh, honey, I never stopped wanting to see you. You're my sister's daughter. You're all I have left of her." We talked for hours. She'd told me about my mother, stories I'd never heard, memories I'd been deprived of, how my mother had been a forensic accountant before she'd gotten sick, how she'd been fierce and protective and brilliant with numbers. "She made your father promise to protect your trust fund," Aunt Caroline had said. "She knew she was dying and she wanted to make sure you'd be taken care of. She never trusted Celeste." "Why didn't she divorce him?" I'd asked. "She tried, but she got her diagnosis right before she could file. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. She had 3 months. She spent that time setting up the trust, making sure it was ironclad, trying to teach you everything she could before she ran out of time." I'd cried then, mourning not just my mother, but all the years I'd been taught to doubt her judgment, to believe that Celeste was the real mother figure in my life. "I'm going to make this right," I'd told Aunt Caroline. "I'm going to protect what she left me." "Tell me what you need," she'd said. "I'm here." And she had been. Aunt Caroline had become my secret ally, helping me gather evidence, connecting me with attorneys, providing a safe space when the house became too suffocating. But I'd kept her existence hidden from my father and Celeste. Let them think I was still isolated, still helpless. The fourth and most crucial thing I'd done was install monitoring software on every device in the house: keyloggers, email trackers, cloud backup scrapers. Every message Madison sent, every document Celeste edited, every transaction my father approved, I saw it all. That's how I'd known about Madison's plan to steal Derek. She'd texted her friend Brianna, "Operation Prom date is a go. By the time I'm done, Lily won't have anyone, and Derek will be so grateful for my support that he'll forget she even exists." That's how I'd known about Celeste's plan to use my college fund to pay for Madison's cosmetic surgery. "We'll say the investment account lost value," she'd written to her sister. "Lily's too stupid to check the actual numbers." That's how I'd known about my father's plan to sell my mother's jewelry collection, the one thing he'd promised would be mine when I turned 18 to cover his gambling debts. "Lily doesn't need to know," he'd written to his bookie. "She'll never miss what she never sees." Every betrayal, documented. Every lie, preserved. Every theft, recorded. I'd built a case file that would make a prosecutor weep with joy, but I couldn't make my move yet. I needed to wait until I turned 18, until I had legal control of my trust fund, until I could act without needing my father's permission for anything. I needed to wait until the trap was perfect. So I'd played the long game. I'd let Madison think she was winning. I'd let Celeste think I was oblivious. I'd let my father think I was the same naive daughter who'd believe anything he told me. And I'd planned my revenge with the patience of someone who'd already died once and had nothing left to lose. The prom night fiasco was just a warning shot. The next few weeks were interesting. Derek and I started dating, real dating, not the shallow high school version from my previous life. We studied together, went to art museums, had long conversations about philosophy and architecture and the nature of forgiveness. "I can't believe I almost went to prom with Madison," he said one afternoon as we sat in his car overlooking the bay. "She texted me 57 times that night." 57? I raised an eyebrow. He showed me his phone. The messages were a masterclass in manipulation, progressing from "I can't believe Lily did this to us" to "She's always been jealous of me" to "Maybe we can still have a good time" to "Why are you ignoring me" to "You're just like her, you know that, cold and selfish" to "I'm sorry, I didn't mean that. Please just talk to me." I didn't respond to any of them, Derek said. "I was too busy talking to you." "She's going to escalate," I warned. "This isn't over." I was right. The following Monday, Madison cornered me in the bathroom between second and third period. Her face was blotchy from crying or from fake crying, I couldn't tell anymore. And her voice shook with theatrical emotion. "How could you?" she hissed. "How could you sabotage my prom like that?" I met her gaze in the mirror as I washed my hands. "I didn't sabotage anything, I just didn't go." "You planted that note in Derek's pocket." "Did I? Or did Derek find a note you actually wrote and you're mad you got caught?" Her face flushed. "I never wrote that note." "Then you won't mind if we show it to a handwriting analyst." "You're insane." "I'm thorough," I corrected, drying my hands. "There's a difference." She grabbed my arm, her manicured nails digging in. "Stay away from Derek. He's mine." I looked down at her hand, then back at her face. In my previous life, this moment had ended with me backing down, apologizing, letting her have whatever she wanted to keep the peace. Not this time. "He's not property, Madison. He's a person. And he chose to talk to me instead of going to prom with you. Maybe ask yourself why." I pulled my arm free and walked out, leaving her sputtering in the bathroom. That afternoon, I found my locker defaced with the word "slut" in permanent marker. I took a photo, time-stamped and geotagged, and sent it to Derek, Aunt Caroline, and Principal Morrison. By the next morning, Madison was suspended for 3 days. Brianna had confessed almost immediately when Principal Morrison had pulled her in, showing her the security footage of Madison and Brianna approaching my locker with a marker. "I didn't think she'd actually get in trouble," Brianna had apparently said, tears streaming. "She said it was just a prank." Celeste had stormed into the principal's office, demanding Madison's suspension be revoked. "This is targeted harassment against my daughter," she'd said. "Lily has been bullying Madison for months." Principal Morrison, a no-nonsense woman who'd been teaching for 30 years, had not been impressed. "Mrs. Hartwell, there's security footage. Your daughter vandalized another student's locker. The suspension stands." I hadn't been present for that confrontation, but Aunt Caroline had a friend who worked in the main office. The gossip network in small towns was a beautiful thing. That night, Celeste had tried a different approach. "Lily, honey," she'd said over dinner, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "I think we need to have a family meeting about boundaries." "What boundaries would those be?" I'd asked, pushing my food around my plate. "Well, you've been very hostile toward Madison lately. I understand you might be jealous." "I'm not jealous. But that doesn't give you the right to sabotage her relationships or lie to school administrators." "I didn't lie. There's security footage." "Security footage can be misinterpreted," Celeste said. "Madison was just going to leave Derek a note to apologize for the misunderstanding." "At my locker?" "She thought Derek might check your locker looking for you." The logic was so absurd I almost laughed. That doesn't even make sense. "It makes perfect sense if you're not trying to twist everything to make Madison look bad." My father had been silent through this entire exchange, cutting his steak with mechanical precision. I'd looked at him, waiting for him to say something, anything, to defend me. He'd taken a sip of wine and said, "Lily, maybe you should apologize to Madison." The old me, the first life me, would have done it. Would have swallowed my pride, said the words, kept the peace. The new me said, "No." My father's fork clattered against his plate. "Excuse me?" "I said no. I'm not apologizing for something I didn't do. Madison vandalized my locker. She got caught. She's facing consequences for her own actions. I'm not going to apologize for existing while she makes bad choices." Celeste's face went red. "Gerald, are you going to let her talk to me like this?" "Like what?" I asked. "I've been perfectly polite. I'm just not pretending that Madison is the victim here." "You're the one who stole her prom date." "Derek isn't property. He made his own choice. If Madison wants to be angry at someone, she should be angry at herself for lying to him." "That's it," Celeste snapped. "Gerald, I want her out of this house." My heart stopped. This was it. This was the moment from my previous life, the moment that had started my downward spiral into isolation and depression. My father set down his fork. "Celeste, I mean it. She's toxic. She's turning this family against each other. Either she goes or I go." In my previous life, this ultimatum had worked. My father had chosen Celeste. He'd sent me to live with his brother in another state, cutting me off from my school, my friends, the last fragments of my support system. I'd finished high school online, isolated and alone, while Madison had enjoyed senior year and gotten into Yale on my essays. But this time, my father surprised me. "Then go," he said quietly. Celeste's mouth fell open. "What?" "I said then go. I'm not kicking my daughter out of her own home because she refused to apologize for something she didn't do." "Gerald." "I've been thinking about this for a while, Celeste. About how you talk to Lily. About how Madison treats her. About how I've let it happen because it was easier than confronting the truth." "What truth?" Celeste's voice was sharp. "That you've been poisoning this family since the day I married you." My father looked at her, really looked at her, maybe for the first time. "That you've been teaching Madison that cruelty is acceptable as long as you smile while you do it. That you've been systematically isolating Lily from everyone who might protect her." "That's absurd. Patricia Chen called me today," my father continued. "She told me about the audit. About the $50,000 you've stolen from Lily's trust fund." The room went silent. Celeste's face cycled through several expressions: shock, fear, anger, calculation, before settling on defensive indignation. "That money was used for family expenses. It was stolen," my father said. "Patricia's filing charges. The police will probably be here tomorrow." I stared at my father, genuinely shocked. I'd thought Patricia was going to wait, to let me build more evidence before making a move. But apparently she'd decided the time was right. Gerald, you can't seriously believe I've already filed for divorce, my father said. My attorney is drawing up the papers. You can stay here tonight, but I want you out by the weekend. Celeste stood up so fast her chair fell backward. You'll regret this. I'll take you for everything you have. You signed a prenup, my father said. You get nothing. Hey, Madison is my stepdaughter. I've been a father to her for 6 years. I'll continue to support her through college, as I promised. But you and I are done. Celeste grabbed her purse and stormed out, Madison scrambling after her. The front door slammed hard enough to rattle the windows. I sat in stunned silence, processing what had just happened. I'm sorry, my father said finally. I should have done that years ago. Why now? I asked. Because I saw you flinch when she said she wanted you out. He looked at me, his eyes red. And I realized you expected me to choose her, that you've been expecting it all along, that somewhere along the way, I taught you that you weren't worth choosing. Dad, your mother would be ashamed of me. His voice cracked. She made me promise to protect you, and I failed. I let Celeste convince me that you were difficult, that you were the problem, when the truth is, I was just too weak to stand up to her. I didn't know what to say. This man wasn't the father from my previous life, the one who'd chosen his second wife over his own daughter again and again. I'm going to make this right, he said. I don't know if you can forgive me, but I'm going to try. Okay, I whispered. Okay. We sat there in the dining room, the food cold on our plates, and for the first time since I'd been reborn, I felt something like hope. The next 3 months were a blur of police interviews, court hearings, and family therapy sessions. Celeste was charged with embezzlement and fraud. The evidence was overwhelming. Patricia Chen had been keeping records for years, waiting for the right moment to act. Turned out, my grandmother had asked her to monitor the trust fund specifically because she'd never trusted my father's judgment after my mother died. She knew he'd make a mistake, Patricia told me over coffee one afternoon. She just didn't know it would be Celeste. Madison avoided prosecution because she was technically a minor and hadn't directly participated in the fraud, but the scandal destroyed her college prospects. Yale rescinded her acceptance when they discovered the plagiarized essays, the university I'd applied to in my previous life, the one she'd stolen my work to get into, sent her a formal rejection letter citing academic dishonesty concerns. She ended up at a community college, which wasn't bad, except it wasn't the Ivy League life she'd spent years cultivating for Instagram. My father and I started actually talking, really talking, not just the surface level how was school conversations we'd had before. He told me about his gambling addiction, about how Celeste had used his debts to control him, about how he'd been so ashamed that he'd let her convince him that his daughter was the enemy. I kept thinking if I could just win big once, I could pay everything off and fix it all, he said during one of our therapy sessions. But that's not how addiction works, and meanwhile, I was letting you suffer. I forgive you, I said. And I meant it. Not because what he'd done was okay, but because he was actually trying to change. He'd joined Gamblers Anonymous. He'd sold his sports betting accounts. He'd put his finances in the hands of a financial advisor who reported directly to Patricia Chen. He was trying. That had to count for something. Derek and I grew closer. He was there for every court date, every moment when I needed someone to just sit with me and remind me I wasn't alone. You're pretty amazing, you know that? He said one night as we sat in his car after a particularly brutal deposition. I'm really not, I said. I'm just doing what I have to do. That's what makes you amazing. He took my hand. Most people would have given up, would have just accepted that their family was terrible and tried to survive, but you're fighting. You're making sure they can't hurt you or anyone else. I died once, I said. Then, realizing how that sounded, I added, Metaphorically, the old me died. The one who believed their lies. I'm not letting her be a victim again. He kissed me then, soft and sweet, and I let myself believe that maybe this life would be better than the last one. Aunt Caroline became a permanent fixture in my life. She attended every school event my father couldn't make, helped me with my college applications, taught me about my mother. "You're so much like her," she said one day, as we looked through old photo albums. "Same stubborn chin, same refusal to back down when you know you're right." "I wish I'd known her better," I said. "She's here," Aunt Caroline said, touching my chest over my heart. "In every choice you make, every time you stand up for yourself, that's her legacy." Graduation came faster than I expected. I gave the valedictorian speech, something Madison had expected to do in both lifetimes, and talked about resilience, about standing up for yourself, about the importance of documentation and boundaries. Derek squeezed my hand as I walked off the stage. "That was for her, wasn't it?" he asked. "For Madison?" "For everyone who thought I'd stay quiet," I said. College acceptance letters came in the spring. I got into my first choice, a school with a top-ranked forensic accounting program. Derek got into Berkeley for architecture. "Long distance is going to suck," he said. "Yeah," I agreed, but we'll make it work." And on the day I turned 18, Patricia Chen called me into her office and handed me a portfolio. "This is your trust fund," she said, "fully restored with interest and penalties paid by Celeste as part of her plea deal, plus your mother's jewelry collection, which your father returned, and the college fund, which was never actually depleted. Your father had been hiding it from Celeste." I looked at the numbers and felt my breath catch. It was more than enough for college. It was enough to start a life. "There's one more thing," Patricia said, sliding an envelope across the desk. "This is from your mother. She wrote it right before she died, with instructions that I give it to you on your 18th birthday." My hands shook as I opened it. "My darling Lily, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone. I'm so sorry I couldn't stay to watch you grow up. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you from whatever came after. But I know you, sweetheart. I know how strong you are, how smart, how resilient. You're going to face challenges I can't even imagine. People are going to try to take advantage of you, to gaslight you, to make you doubt yourself. Don't let them. You are my daughter. You are brilliant and capable and deserving of every good thing life has to offer. Don't ever let anyone convince you otherwise. I've set up the trust to make sure you'll have resources. Patricia will be there to help you navigate the legal stuff. Aunt Caroline will be there to remind you where you came from. But the most important thing I can give you is a permission to walk away from people who hurt you, even if they're family, even if they tell you that love means enduring their cruelty. It doesn't. Love yourself fiercely. Protect yourself ruthlessly. And remember that the best revenge is a life well lived. I'll be watching over you, sweetheart. Always. Love, Mom." I read the letter 3 times before I could speak. "She knew," I whispered. "She knew I'd need this." "She was a very wise woman," Patricia said softly. "She'd be proud of you." That night, I posted on Instagram for the first time in months. It was a photo of my college acceptance letter with the caption, "To everyone who counted me out, watch me." Madison didn't like the post. Neither did Celeste, from whatever account she was using while out on bail. But Derek did, and Aunt Caroline, and my father, and the hundreds of other people who'd watched my story unfold and were rooting for me. The comment section filled with encouragement, with stories from people who'd faced similar betrayals, with promises that it gets better. And I knew, in that moment, that I'd won. Not because I'd destroyed Madison and Celeste, though there was a certain satisfaction in watching them face consequences for once, but because I'd reclaimed my own story. I'd refused to be the victim they wanted me to be. I'd fought back, intelligently and methodically, and I'd won. 4 years later, I stood in front of a different mirror, in a different dress, preparing for a different kind of night. "You look beautiful," Aunt Caroline said, adjusting the veil. "I can't believe this is happening," I said. "Believe it," she kissed my cheek. "You earned this." Derek and I got married on a cliff overlooking the Pacific with a small group of people who actually loved us. My father walked me down the aisle sober and steady. Aunt Caroline cried through the entire ceremony. Patricia Chen sat in the front row looking pleased with herself. Madison and Celeste weren't invited. Madison had sent a card anyway, a generic congratulations thing from CVS, with a note inside. I'm happy for you. I'm sorry for everything. I hope you can forgive me someday. I'd thrown the card away without responding. Some things didn't deserve closure. My forensic accounting firm was thriving. I specialized in financial fraud cases, particularly those involving family members stealing from trusts and estates. I'd helped dozens of people recover stolen inheritances, and I was building a reputation as someone who didn't back down from difficult cases. Derek's architecture firm was taking off. He designed 3 award-winning buildings and was being courted by firms in New York and Tokyo. We'd made it. Despite the odds, despite the trauma, despite everything that should have broken us. That night, at the reception, I stood up to give a toast. 4 years ago, I said, I didn't go to prom. My stepsister stole my date, and instead of fighting for a night that didn't matter, I stayed home. And my date, I looked at Derek, smiling, spent the entire night texting me. Laughter rippled through the crowd. We talked about real things that night, about dreams and fears and the kind of people we wanted to be. And I realized something important. When someone shows you who they really are, believe them. When someone chooses you, even in small moments, honor that choice. And when someone tries to steal your happiness, don't fight them for it. Build your own. I raised my glass. To building our own happiness, to choosing ourselves, to second chances even when you have to make them yourself. To second chances, the crowd echoed. Derek pulled me into a kiss, and for a moment, everything was perfect. Later, as we danced under string lights, he whispered in my ear, Do you ever regret how things happened? The prom thing, all the drama with your family? No, I said honestly. If I'd gone to prom with you that first time, we would have had one good night and probably drifted apart after graduation. Instead, I got to really know you. I got to understand what it means to choose someone every day, not just once in a grand gesture. That's very wise, he said. I had a good teacher. I thought of my mother's letter, still tucked in my jewelry box. She taught me that the best revenge is a life well lived. Is that what this is? Derek asked. Revenge? No, Sadman. This is better. This is joy. And it was. Pure, hard-won, deliberately constructed joy. Epilogue. 5 years after the wedding, I sat in a courtroom testifying in the case of Martinez v. Martinez. Another trust fund case, another family stealing from a vulnerable daughter. The girl, Sophia Martinez, 19 years old, sat next to her attorney, looking small and scared. Her parents sat on the other side of the courtroom, looking confident that they'd get away with it. They didn't know I'd spent 3 months building an airtight case. They didn't know I'd tracked every transaction, found every hidden account, documented every lie. Ms. Hartwell, the judge said, can you explain your findings? Yes, Your Honor. I opened my portfolio. Over the past 5 years, Mr. and Ms. Martinez have embezzled approximately $340,000 from their daughter's trust fund, which was established by her maternal grandmother. They've used the money to purchase a vacation home, fund their son's business ventures, and pay for cosmetic procedures. I walked through the evidence methodically and clearly while Sophia's parents' lawyer tried and failed to poke holes in my work. The judge ruled in Sophia's favor, full restitution plus penalties and legal fees. Afterward, Sophia hugged me in the hallway, crying, Thank you, no one believed me. Everyone said I was being ungrateful, that family doesn't sue family. Family doesn't steal from family either, I said. You did the right thing. How did you know? She asked. How did you know to fight back? Because someone taught me that I was worth fighting for, I said, Asa. And now I'm teaching you. You're worth it, Sophia. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. She nodded, wiping her tears. I want to do what you do. Help people like me. Then study hard, I said. Get your degree, learn the law inside and out, and when you're ready, call me. There's always room in my firm for people who understand what it means to fight for themselves. I drove home that night feeling the familiar satisfaction of a case well won. Derek was in the kitchen when I arrived, making dinner. How'd it go? He asked. We won. I kissed him. Another trust fund recovered, another family of thieves held accountable. My hero, he said, grinning. We ate dinner together, talking about our days, planning our weekend, living the ordinary life we'd fought so hard to build. And later, when I checked my phone, I saw a new email from an address I didn't recognize. Subject, I'm sorry, Lily, I know you don't want to hear from me. I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but I wanted you to know that I understand now what I did to you. All of it. The prom thing was just the beginning, wasn't it? I destroyed so much more than one night. I'm in therapy. I'm working on myself. I'm trying to understand why I was so cruel to you, why I let mom convince me that you were the enemy. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't expect you to respond to this email. I just wanted you to know that you were right about everything. And I'm sorry. I'm so, so sorry. Madison, I stared at the email for a long time. Part of me wanted to respond, to engage, to try one more time to have a relationship with the stepsister who'd made my life hell. But I knew better now. Some people change, some people don't. And either way, I didn't owe her my energy, my time at bay, or my forgiveness. I deleted the email without responding. Then I turned off my phone, climbed into bed next to my husband, and fell asleep, content in the knowledge that I'd built a life worth living. Madison had stolen my prom date, but I'd stolen back my entire life, and that was the best revenge of all.